What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the comic book shop for or not. So the book that I want to talk about released a little while ago, and that is Thanos number 13. So with all the Infinity War stuff and the fact that I'm doing all these projects on the side, it took me a little while to get to this one, but it's definitely something that I want to talk about. So Thanos number 13 picks up where Jeff Lemire left off in Thanos number 12 and starts a brand new arc with a brand new creative team of Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. So this is going to be something completely interesting because it starts off with one common thought: Thanos wins. So let's dive in and see what we've got. So the first page of Thanos number 13 starts off with kind of a summary, and this is a summary that, the greatest things every being inside the Marvel current universe wonders one thing, and if they're wondering what will be the trembling voice, the one being that would end all of existence, and that would be Thanos. So the Mad Titan really doesn't make his appearance until a little bit later on in the book. What we do is we get a lot of backstory written by Donny Cates, and that's where we get our first differences between the Jeff Lemire run and the Donny Cates run, because he's got a very different sense of storytelling that goes into this. And as we see this kind of destroyed world, through these various centuries of the Chitauri Empire, as we kind of get into this temple, this arena where we finally see Thanos reigning over what can only be considered one person of importance, surrounded by these kind of visions that allow the plebeians, the lower parts of society, to witness this devastation. Sitting in front of the throne, Thanos asks, "Who is your king?" The response from the person underneath his boot is, "I'm the king," and it's just like, liar. Kings do not beg, as he crushes his head with his boot and then steps up onto the throne, taking the reign of the Chitauri people, to just start chanting, "Thanos, Thanos, Thanos." And what we see is that we have this kind of viceroy, this person of influence, this person that is kind of the worm tongue of the Chitauri people, comes up and is wondering if, Thanos could call off his god that's still destroying his people. And it's just, Thanos has no idea what's going on, and then you've got this kind of red snow, this rain of blood that is falling upon the planet, and Thanos smiles, a true combatant has arrived, and it's a cosmic Ghost Rider. I mean, this is probably one of the coolest things. We got guns blazing, we got this giant blue ball of energy that's hosting the front wheel of his motorcycle as he rampages through the devastation. He destroys entire legions of the army with just passing blow-by of his bike in general as he rampages towards this arena where he finds Thanos waiting. And it's really weird because this cosmic Ghost Rider isn't necessarily the one that you would be thinking of. He's a little bit more funny. He's a little bit more edgy. Is this going to be some sort of different Ghost Rider? Is it not Robbie Rodriguez or Johnny Blaze or, Danny Ketch? Is there a different one? We'll find out about that probably later on in a different issue, but this is the introduction of the cosmic Ghost Rider, a brand new representation of the Spirit of Vengeance inside this. And immediately he goes into conflict with Thanos. Unfortunately, Thanos is far too overwhelmed with this, holding a fragment of the Time Stone and wielding about these chains made out of the bones of Cyttorak. This is kind of implying a little bit more magical, mystical origin that goes along with these things. Possibly we're looking at some sort of former Sorcerer Supreme. Maybe it's Loki that's, doing these things. Who really knows? So, hitched up with these bones of Cyttorak turned into chains, he's dragged from the past into the future where we see this devastated Earth, it looks like, floating outside the sun, this belt of various asteroids in this giant panel spread. And we come flying in, Thanos goes flailing around, still bound by these chains, and ultimately he feels that this is a gigantic insult to him. Who is to call Thanos before him in such a manner? And you see, it's Thanos himself, sitting on a throne inside the mouth of a long-deceased Galactus. And that's where we end the story. So when we dive back into this, we see that Donny Cates has taken a very different impression and a very different approach than what we found when it came to Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire had a much more serious tone to almost everything that he did, leaving a little bit of the comic relief to characters like the Champion of the Universe and to Nebula and their interactions, to the things that happen with, with Star Fox. And there's a whole bunch of different stuff in the original run of Jeff Lemire's Thanos that is not necessarily thrown by the wayside, but definitely twisted a little bit. The biggest thing is Jeff Shaw. Jeff Shaw has a very different art style than what we saw in Mike Deodato and the various artists that came before in the Thanos series. And what I find the first thing that's noticeable is Jeff Shaw really tightened up everything about his artwork. If you're familiar with his work on God Country, it was very loose, it was very gritty, it was very grainy, it was, relatively, it was definitely a more independent style of art, and this feels considerably more refined than those pages. Does any of this lessen the experience of Thanos number 13? Absolutely not. If anything, injecting a touch more humor, injecting a little bit of unknown, providing a lot of backstory and context, and creating this kind of world and giving you an understanding of where Donny Cates is going to go with Thanos prior to really taking you to the Mad Titan himself. It's a really huge improvement, or it's not necessarily an improvement, but it's a really huge impact that I can really get behind. Overall, Thanos, with a combination of this creative team, which partnered up on God Country, which you should read if you haven't had a chance yet, this is going to be a really solid run on Thanos, and I really like where it's going. So it's definitely something I recommend people go back to the comic book shop and pick up if they haven't had a chance yet. But that's my thoughts on Thanos number 13. I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below so we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.